whatever their issue is.
Yes.
But then if we're going to be looking at how they generate their fund. I think this was one of the points that INEC said, that they need to say how they generate, how do they make their fund. And if they're giving 1 billion and we're having a deficit of over 8.16 billion naira, I think the INEC need to call of these political parties and ask them critical questions. And we don't just need mere answer, but we need deep answers, details, and they should be persecuted for whatever's much more than what is expected of them to spend.
And you can understand that the presidential ticket was sold for 100 million. So when you see APC make 604 million, that can be accounted for. If you see PDP making 199 million, that can be accounted for.
2015.
That for 2004. Yes, the presidential ticket was up to that, but still, we can. If this is the present money, for instance, that they have, we can over the years understand there have been so many political activities going on in parties, fines here, there, and then bills. But when you are spending and you have a deficit of 8.7 billion, then INEC needs to look into it, because where is that money coming from? Is there a source of income that you are not telling the public about? Is there some other way you are making money as a party, that because they are supposed to know what other income generation method are you using in your party? They need to know. And yes, we keep making the point that INEC needs more, they need to enlarge, because you can see that obviously there are things that they're supposed to be tackling and they are not able to tackle because they don't have hands on deck, or they don't have that body, a sub-body that is helping them do something like that. So they need people need to sit down, come up with the ways that this needs to be investigated. If 2015 is still pending, that people, offenders that are yet to be punished for what they are for going over 1 billion, and we're still having this year coming, and we're having 8.7 billion deficit. That's for PDP, then APC having 2.3. Then INEC needs to do something about it, because we need to know, is there another way these parties are making money? Where are they getting this huge sum of money that they are spending that nobody is knowing about? INEC is not aware of. What are they doing to come up with this sort of money?
I think we have to keep our fingers crossed for that. Well, let's look at other stories still on Leadership newspaper, and we have on terrorism. Court adjourned Kanu trial indefinitely. That can find on page 40 of the Leadership newspaper. We have for speedy trial President Muhammadu Buhari at the National Assembly to amend the CBCCT Act. You can look up for that too. Another interesting story on paper here is Erufai, Obaseki, Unu, and others demand subsidy removal and restructure. And I think this is something that's over or long been lingering on our paper. So we look forward to seeing what the incoming president is going to do about that. Even though they said it stopped mid-2023. So we hope to see if we are stopping this for subsidy, into as it is right now. If you go to, take possibly ask questions from the public, they will tell you it's of no difference whether the subsidy is removed or not, because if as president you're buying a liter of petrol at over 400 naira, then there's no difference whether it's removed or not. But we need something to be done, because if we're saying we're paying that first subsidy so that we can make the burden light for the population, making it light for their citizens, then I think that whoever is coming we're on the cap in 2023, we should be prepared, because there's a lot of work to be done.
And I keep saying about this subsidy, if taking it out would be of good to the country, why are we taking long to do it? As you said, there's no difference. We're buying fuel at 400. We don't even feel the impact of the subsidy. Of course, and if it's been removed, it might go higher. But what's the plan? I keep saying, can we just give Nigerians a blueprint and tell them, you know what, if we remove this 4 years from now, this is what this subsidy money will be able to do us. And I think as a Nigerian, should be able to be patient, because I hope to live 4 years more. I hope to live many more years to see the glory of Nigeria. I will say, you know what, yes, remove the subsidy and let's see truly what you are telling us is going to happen. If it's for our good, then every Nigerian that has Nigeria in mind should be able to say, yes, let's do this as a country. Let's take it out. Then what do you plan on doing with the subsidy money? Infrastructure, tell us where you plan on investing in. Is it industrialization? Tell us what industries you plan on put it in. Is it into our refinery? Tell us what it can for our refinery, that we will no longer export crude oil and importing refined oil. Tell us what it will do to us, and then go ahead with it, so that 5 years from now Nigerians can say, you know what, this subsidy money was put into doing refinery. Now we no longer import oil, but we do it all here. And that's the reason why today, as much as there was a time where it was 400, we can now fuel is 100 at the fuel station or something like that. So yes, if it will be of our good, go ahead with it. Just be sincere and honest leaders who really want to take Nigeria to the next level.
And I think that is where we have to pick it from, honest and transparency. True. Because I think that is what we are lacking, just like you said, so that we know where is the money for the subsidy. And I think the first step was that is, apart from the green coal company that was, prosecuted for being behind oil theft, where yet there are other people that are behind, because believe they are not the only people that are behind it. So let us into book every other person that is actually, packing in that. Recently on the papers, we saw that we're beginning to recover oil. We are producing over 1.3 billion naira barrel a day. I think that is the right step in the right direction. But we look forward to that day that will go back to when we were producing 2 million and above, of oil per day. And also, just like this, when we fix our own refinery, then I think that is the right in the right direction. So we look forward to that. Still on Leadership newspaper on 2023, Salami Kuka raised concern about the violent campaign. Other story here, media chief discussed framework for co-regulation code ethics. Defense headquarters placed 5 million naira bounty each on 19 terrorists. And we have at school PDP G5 governors feel will end soon, says Saraki. And we have a story here with the Rivers State governor and other stakeholders during they are actually inaugurating a place where we can see them. So during that, if you are interested, you can get the Leadership newspaper and read details of that story. But then story about defense headquarters placing 5 million naira bounty on each of these 19 terrorists. I think it's really a right step. Even though I'll say with or without the money, for the benefit of everybody, I should be interested. If I see this, I should. But I think we saw that during the Kuje prison break, where they also asked the Nigerians that in case you have any information, you should let the defense headquarters know. So we look forward to seeing that for every of these 9 terrorists and more, they will be brought to book. Not just because of the money, but because we are interested in the safety of Nigeria.
Like, this took me back like 3 years back or so. It's unfortunate that our national, not that I'm dragging anybody down. This was a documentary by the BBC, and I have to admit to that. And it's about the insurgency in Maiduguri and how these people had bounty hunters and there was no government money placed on it. And the interesting was that the leader of these bounty hunters, well, I won't say that, but she had a high ranking in the association, was a woman. She had her assistant, there was one at the top, and they were going around fishing out Boko Haram. So I want to believe that as a Nigerian, without the money, I should be interested in bringing out these terrorists, because I keep saying terrorism is a ripple effect. I can't sit down and say it's only happening in Borno. It will come to Plateau. It is already everywhere. I can't say because in the south, let the north deal with their problem. It's just a matter of fact, it will spread things. So everybody should be interested in this. It can be dangerous, and I'm saying you have to go to the nook and crannies or follow them to mountain. You're not armed, you don't have any weapon. But whatever you can do, you don't have to be a bounty hunter. Whatever you can do to give or defense people information should interest you. That I said, why didn't they put whether is it dead or life? Let's know so that we can give it a try. So on a serious note, though, this is something every Nigerian should take seriously, because you have to reach a point where you realize that we can't wait only for the police, we can't wait only for the soldier. What part am I playing in this? And that was what I saw with people, because Boko Haram was dealing with them, and they had to wake up as a country and say, you know what, we have to go and find them also. And that was what they did. And they had success. They were successful. These people were successful to a very large extent. For them to be picked up internationally, they did a good job. So I want to believe that should be a wake-up call to us, that what can you contribute to fighting terrorism in Nigeria? You don't have to go to the extreme, but what is your little effort towards making sure that these terrorists are caught and then persecuted and put where they belong?
Of course, we look forward to having bounty hunters, and even those that are not hunters, actually, contribute their own. And that's all on the leadership newspaper.
On the Blueprint newspaper, CORD nullifies I-bomb APC global primaries. The writer says gives party 2 weeks to organize fresh poll, rules out Udofia. APC Senator hails CORD, tax INEC on Taraba Guban. You can continue with that story on page 6. And the big story, fake news on Tinubu. MBC slams 2 million naira fine on Arise News, all compliance in 2 weeks. The writer says security injures as APC kicks off campaign today. Still on the Blueprint newspaper, Defense Headquarters places 5 million naira each on 19 most wanted terrorists. Pneumonia kills 1.5 million children annually. Atiku appears at Editors Forum on Wednesday. Obi knows he can't win 2023 election. This coming from Soludo. And on the downside of the paper, despite political differences, Jonathan resisted pressure to get me impeached. And if you want to know who's saying that, you can turn to page 20 of the Blueprint newspaper. No more flight to Dubai, air peace declared. This is still on visa debate. MTN Airtel generates 739 billion naira in revenue in 4 months. Petrol subsidy no longer sustainable, says IPMAN. Buhari ordered modern youth skills acquisition for self-employment. This coming from NASENI. And still on the Blueprint newspaper, there is a picture story where we can see the Vice President Yemi Osibajo and the Minister of Finance. And on the other side, there is Bola Tinubu, the APC presidential candidate, and Atiku, the PDP presidential candidate. And that's all the news on Blueprint newspaper.
On this day newspaper, we have still come from Soludo, the Anambra State governor. I won't succumb. Buddhist Obi knows he can't win. Says he's making Tinubu's pathway to victory much easier, toying in the Igbo's destiny. Anambra governor being sought to weaken our candidate. This is coming from the Labour Party. Still on the issue of election, we have Akwa Ibom, Kosak, Odofia, Apabio, APC Guba senatorial candidate. The big story for this day, we have the NESG set priorities for Atiku, Tinubu, Obi, Kwankwaso, and others. And the writer following that story says Buhari increased domestic production, value addition will address inflation and forex constraint. And then we have publication of fan advocation meant to help citizens demand accountability. Federal government eyes 2 trillion naira in taxes by December. And then we have a write-up here that says any one of our candidates who seeks office president and vice president who does not subscribe to this consensus issue does not clearly understand the problems facing us as a country. Not thought about how these problems must be dealt with and not have the capacity and understanding this country at this time. This is still coming from the Nigeria Economic Surrounding Group, so you can read more of that the front page and also on page 12. And we have a picture story here still looking at the 40 years of cross-border banking. So you can see the CBN governor and the stakeholders. So well to read more. And still on the APC campaign, we have history will repeat itself at just presidential flag off coming from governor of Plateau State. And it's all on this day's paper.
On Nigerian Tribune, Defense Headquarters declares 19 terrorists wanted and places 50 million bounty on 5 million bounty on each. 23.7 million Nigerians in 26 states to be in food crisis between June, August 2023. This is a report. Peace accord on the thread. Abdul Salami Kuka raised alarm, says comments action by political actors disappointing. And the big story, Peter Obi knows he can't and won't win. This is coming from Sudo, and he went forward to say the game he is playing is the main reason he didn't return to Aga. The brutal truth is that there are two persons and parties seriously contesting for president. The rest is exciting drama. The current fleeting frenzy, if not checked, will cause Indibo dearly for years. On Nigerian Tribune, just Agog as APC flags off Tinubu presidential campaign today. Nigerian students in US increased by 12.3%. This is a report which you can read on page 5. Afenifere expresses concern over incessant kidnapping on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. 96 died in Bayelsa flood, 1.2 million people displaced. This is coming from the government, and you can read that on page 8. Africa tops world undiagnosed diabetes. This is a report from the World Health Organization, and there's a writer that says 1 in 10 adults has diabetes. You can continue that report on page 3. US earmarked $50 million for 2023 poll, and you can read that on page 23. And that's all the news on Nigerian Tribune.
On the Punch newspaper, INEC office attack worry UK and US oppose rigging. That you can find on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. Military places. Sorry, paper is going up. Richard, can you take that paper?
Yes. Military places 95 million naira bounty in 19 bandits kingpin. Organized private sector said $9 billion agenda for federal government. And the big story on the Punch newspaper, still on our 2023 polls, Soludo attacks Obi again, says ex-governor cannot win. The writer following that story negotiate with Nubu Atiku Soludo advises Southeast. Why I rejected Obi's offer to defect to PDP in 2017 poll, says Anambra governor. Soludo allowing himself to be used. Obi will win Labour Party PCC. And on the downside of the paper, Tinubu's victory certain, says Lalong as campaign begins. Driver arrested for cruising for crushing Ekiti policemen to death. That's sad one, and you can read it on page 4. Still on oil theft, federal government arrests 16 foreigners and detains vessel. And we have a picture story, resist government control, and advises media practitioner, which you can find that story on page 5. And that's all the news on the Punch newspaper.
Right, like at this moment, we'd like to take a break so we can actually let you some of the stories, the issue that Abdul Salam is having on the worries coming from some of these political parties, talking about hate speech and all of that. I think we really need to talk about it, and also the fact that we are having 1 in every adult suffering from diabetes in Africa being the highest. Well, we really need to look into that, just because we celebrated the World Diabetes Day yesterday. So we really love to hear from you, from any of the story that's of interest to you. Do not go anywhere. We'll be right back at this break. Welcome back. If you're tuning in, it's still the Dailies on Echo Television International, and I'm your host, Elish, and my co-host have been Rachel Tanzi. Thank you, Rachel, for doing this with me.
You're welcome.
Yes, remember we're live on Facebook and also on YouTube, so please do well to drop your contribution and also your comment, any of the story that really is of interest to you. And we shall further to the newspaper review and taking the Nation newspaper. And we have the first read here, why I invited Buhari, Obi, Kwankwaso and others coming from Wike, the River State governor. And Soludo say poverty doubled under Obi, says Soludo Labour Party governor jealous. This is coming from Labour, saying that the governor is jealous. Well, we really love to hear from you, so you can drop your comment on what you feel about what the governor of Anambra is saying about the Labour Party presidential candidate. Petrol subsidy not sustainable if man insists, and then we're having Oyo to end kidnapping on Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. This is the right thing to do at a time like this. Other stories here we have, which is on fake news. NBC fines Arise TV 2 million naira. I think this is a story that is of interest to most everybody. So we really love you to read that story on page 23 or 28, sorry, of the Nation newspaper. The big story here, Salami panel raises violence threat polls. The writer say politicians not ready to play by those, says INEC. And if INEC is saying politicians are not ready to play by the rules, then just like you said yesterday, then the right thing should be done. If we have given you the guidelines, why are you not following? Then there should be a penalty for that. Because I don't believe that the political parties are bigger than INEC, because INEC is the body that is supposed to, govern and also check all of these things. The fact that they do not have the body that will persecute electoral offenders does not mean that all these political parties should disobey all of these rules that we said. So I believe that INEC should do the right thing to do. Maybe when a party is being disqualified from the presidential election, maybe that will make them to sit upright. But then I am worried, because in as much as we are calling INEC independent, they are not really that independent, I believe, because they still have to depend on sister bodies to carry out some of their activities. So we look forward to when all political parties will follow up. We look forward to when political parties will do the right thing. We look forward to the fact that they will be called back to know that they are supposed to act and play by the rules and not to play over or out of the rules.
When you keep telling a baby or a child, I will beat you, and you don't, I will beat you, the child will keep doing the same thing, and he knows after all, mommy or daddy will just say, I will beat you, and they will never beat you. I think this is what INEC is doing. They just keep telling them, we will do this, but you never do it. Why would you say politicians not ready to play by the rules? You are to make them play by the rule. That's how it works. You're not supposed to sit down and say, they are refusing to play by the rules. No, you are responsible to make them play by the rules. That is your job, to make sure they play by the rule. And as long as you are not making them to play by the rules, they will continue not playing by the rule. So you are giving the authority to make sure they play by the rule. What is the penalty for hate speech? What is the penalty for going over with your budget? What is the penalty for doing this and that? What are the penalties? You make sure that immediately it's happening, they're getting their punishment due to them. So you can't sit down and say they are not playing. No, you are expected, you are the body with the responsibility of making sure that they play by the rule. So instead of just saying they are not, make them play by the rule.
So we look forward to when INEC will actually do that and not just bend their rules for certain people. But then, just like we said, the rules is applicable to everybody, whether you are the high and mighty or you are the poor. Everybody is to play by the rule. We have two picture stories here, so you can get the paper still on the Nation newspaper and read any of the story that's of interest to you, and that's all on the Nation newspaper.
On the Daily Sun newspaper, soldiers continue onslaught against Abia community. The writer following that story, Ohafia indigenes alleged mass killing. Young men flee for fear of arrest. Military gives condition for truce, and you can read that on page 4. We have a story still on PDP crisis. We will surprise Nigerians, says Saraki. The big story on Daily Sun, anger as underaged dead listed in new voter registration. Register not final. This is coming from INEC. US earmarks $50 million to train journalists, civil society, commission officials on peaceful elections. And you can read that story on page 6. Media stakeholders agree to appoint Ombudsman has stepped towards regulation. You can read that on page 26. Reps move to add flooding, propose 200 billion naira for ecological projects. Fresh terrorism charge, Nnamdi Kanu Sean's court trial adjourned indefinitely. And then we still have the story about our defense headquarters placing bounty on terrorists. Buhari meets Tinubu Adamu as APC presidential campaign kicks off in Jos. Peace committee decries intemperate language, intimidation, outright violence, and you can read that on page 27. Still on the Daily Sun, and if Afenifere to federal government, don't let Nigeria become another Afghanistan. Charges Southwest governors to be more decisive on kidnappers, and you can read that on page 28. And the last story on the downside of the paper, why Buhari ordered mass skills acquisition for youth. This is coming from the Naseni boss, and you can read that on page 26. And that's all the news on Daily Sun.
On Nigerian News Direct, excuse me, on 2023, INEC must be on red alert in Oyo. Makandi's campaign cancelled as seen that. And we have Abiodun commissions Arabo journalist estate road. EPAN urges journalists to improve society through reporting. You can read more of that story inside the Nigerian News Direct. And the big story, which is on Nigerian economy, debt burden, exchange rate, and others pressure trouble the federal government. The writer following the story says, as government eyes increased revenue through productivity and value addition. Ozibanjo laments Naira exchange rate, debt service to revenue ratio. And we have reps for over the 3.3 trillion Naira domestic debt grills the DMO. And we have as El-Rufai calls for discontinuity of subsidy regime. You can read all of that story on page 2. Other stories here we have Oyo government seek partnership with the US on agriculture and health security. Still on Nigerian News Direct, we have Lagos ranked most NYC friendly state. Well, that's really a right one in the right direction, and we're really happy to see stories like this where we see more states will be ranked as friendly. I remember back then during the NYC service where we have some of the core members wanted to redeploy from other states because they feel it's not safe. But we can see that Lagos State has been ranked as the most NYC friendly state. No wonder people are actually buying, paying so that they'll be able to serve in Lagos State. So we look forward to where it's not just going to be about it being friendly, but then that after you're done with your youth service, you'll be able to have a job waiting for you to stand by. Because we know that, yes, Lagos is a state of commerce, lots of industries and other, commercial activities are going on there. So we look forward to where more will be done, other states, and then insecurity will be kept to its minimum so that wherever you are being posted, even when you are being posted in the most states that people feel is a very terrible state, you'll be excited to serve in that state because you know that there's something you can contribute to society.
And the thing is that it's a gradual process. There was once a time Nigeria was like that where everybody didn't mind where they were posted to as core members. Like you would go anywhere you want to go to and you'll be regarded. Now, I would like to say the core members are not that regarded. It doesn't even stop there. And then the safety. And of course, Lagos life is different. It's an industrialization place and commerce, business booming here and there. I think everybody will want to go there because, yes, there are lots of opportunity there. And even Abuja is one of those places. And then funny enough, even just Plateau State is one of those places. Even with the crisis, it happened to be one of those places that people do look forward to come and serve. And yes, we keep saying that the government needs to do a lot of work. Nigeria, everywhere in Nigeria should be safe, not just one place, but the whole of this country. We need to go back to our former glory where I wouldn't care if I'm taken to Zamfara. Worst case, even Meduguri, I will gladly pack my bag and you know what? I'm off to service in Borno, Meduguri, and the road will be safe and the town will be safe. And even if as a core member I'm taken to a village, I'll be sure that I'm here to serve my fatherland and then it is safe and all of that. So it is achievable. We can grow to that extent, but then, you know, security has to be good for Nigeria. Let one state not just take the glory of a beautiful and service-friendly place, but every other state too.
All right, let's move to the next paper, which is the Daily Times newspaper. And we have court adjourned Kanu's arrangement indefinitely to wait the Supreme Court decision. And then also still on the Daily Times newspaper, the writer says as Kanu refuses to attend court session on Monday. So for those who have been following that story closely, you can read that on the front page and also page 4 of the Daily Times newspaper. The big story here said Nigeria's exchange rate regime remains of concern, coming from Osinbajo, says urgent step needs to be taken to control inflation, and there's really a lot. And we have the Vice President Yemi Osinbajo said Nigerian exchange rate regime remains a subject of concern which needs to be readdressed. Osinbajo expressed this view in his address at the opening of the 28th Nigeria Economic Summit, where he represented President Muhammadu Buhari on Monday in Abuja. The two-day summit with the theme 2023 and Beyond Priority for Sharing Prosperity was organized by the Nigeria Economic Summit Group in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Finance. So you can read the front page, and I'm excited for where we have summit like this, always coming from the Nigeria Economic Summit. It started yesterday and we'll be rounding up today, and I hope that during that summit lots of issues will be addressed. We'll look into how we can bring back the value of our naira again. We look forward to how we can control inflation. And the sweet thing about inflation is things must not actually go down, but they should remain at the price that they are presently. But the moment where you are going to buy tomatoes today at 100 naira, tomorrow it's at 150, and then the prices keep going down and forth. Interest rate in the bank is unbearable. We can see that customers can no longer even get loans because of the redesign of the naira and all of these things. So I'm happy that for where we have summit like this, even though the summit have been here for like since 1993 or 1994 thereabout till date, so you can know that lots of issues are being brought to the table, being discussed, and then we'll see that Nigeria economy will be stable soon. So we can also rub our shoulder, not just being a developing country, but we will be a developed country soon. Still on the Daily Times, we have other stories that said on budget defense, we have the HOR France at the DMO over the 3.3 trillion naira domestic debt. How huge decline in revenue forces the federal government to borrow more for survival. You can read that story on page 2. And we have federal government retaliates commitment to harmonize public workers' salaries. So you can read more of that story. And we have a picture story too on the front page of the Daily Times. So you can do well, grab the paper and read any of the story that is of interest to you.
On New Telegraph, non-oil forex inflows hit 5.49 trillion naira in 6 months. This is coming from the CBN. Nigeria's oil supply up 77,000 barrels per day, beat Saudi Arabia and others. This is a good one, and we hope we continue like that. And you can read more of that on page 28. And the big story on New Telegraph, Abdul Salam Koka troubled by verbal wars among political actors. And you can read that on page 3. Defense headquarters declares 19 terrorist commanders wanted. Still on 2023 budget, reps query DMO over 3.5634 trillion domestic in depth, and you can find that story on pages 8 and 26. 14,438 Nigerians enrolled for studies in U.S. varsities. This is a report. I will soon return to Nigeria. This is coming from Sunday Igabo and sits on Yoruba Nation. And on the downside of the paper, there is a study that says smartphones may harbor allergens, and you can read that on page 26. And that's all the news on New Telegraph.
The report, why I have to talk about this report is the fact that it's not just on the New Telegraph paper, but we saw it on other papers, the number of Nigerian students that are studying in the US.
Yes.
And we keep talking about brain drain. Now, initially it was more focus was on the doctors leaving. We have nurses leaving. We're having students wanting to study and not wanting to come back.
Yeah.
We're having lots of people keep leaving, and I think it's high time we stop enriching other countries, because it's quite alarming that we prefer to study abroad. Why not fix the educational sector? And no wonder, even on the paper we saw where ASU is planning to protest, a one-day protest on their half payment of salary.
Yes.
And just like we said, in as much as we want the students to study, we also want the teachers to also be comfortable and want to stay back in the country. You need to go outside the shores of Nigeria and see that most of the professors we have outside are Nigerians. I wonder if they can do well outside the country. Why can't we make them do well here in the country?
Yes.
No wonder last week we saw it, they say they're being treated like casual workers.
Yes.
So I just hope that we look inwardly and see how we can build and also, restructure the educational system and other sectors that actually need to be visited, even the health sector, every other sector that tends to be collapsing. I hope that whoever is coming 2023, regardless of your religion, regardless of your ethnicity, we will look inwardly that we want to build Nigeria of our dreams. True. That when you raise the green and white flag, you will be proud of that color, not just being sad that I'm from Nigeria, and then you will shine, and then will not be treated like second class when we leave. But people will want us to come into their country because they know we have something positive to contribute. So we look forward to when Nigerians will stop wanting to study abroad, but want to study here.
And you rightly said it, Tele, like we are enriching other countries. And even if not for our doctors, let's talk about the students. We are enriching them through paying for tuition, rent, feeding, and everything. Because some weeks back, like long ago, there was a report on one of the papers we read that we are adding 1.9 billion pounds to the UK just on education and sponsoring our wards abroad. And that's only UK. We have Nigerians in Canada. We have them in the US. We have Nigerians even in Dubai here schooling. We have them in Germany. We have them in Russia. If not because of the war in Ukraine, they are coming. But yes, Ghana, here. We have Nigerians there. We have them in Cyprus, in Malaysia. We have them in, as in, we spread exactly. And that's just the report for the UK. Can we sit down and calculate how much for the US, Canada? Can we? So yes, we are enriching other, and that's why I said no doubt. The question that was asked on the paper yesterday, whose gain? We obviously know whose gain it is. Even a blind man knows who, even a deaf person who is not hearing anything knows whose gain it is that Nigerians are leaving this country, be it for school or work. We know who is gaining, and it's definitely not us.
All right, let's move further to other papers, which is the Guardian newspaper. We have NBC imposed 2 million naira fine on Arise News for alleged breach of broadcasting code. You can read that story inside the Guardian newspaper. Court sack Akwa Ibom APC Guba candidate and orders fresh primary. And we have make debate mandatory for presidential Guba candidate. This is coming from the CMPP telling the federal government. Well, I hope that they will make it, because we really love to hear from them. Ministry summoned meeting its own Ethiopian dominating the Nigerian air. And the big story here, which is on 237-day medical trip, despite Buhari's pledge to cut costs, presidential fleet ranks up to 64.15 billion naira. And then we're having the riders that says what Buhari's 237-day medical trip cost taxpayers. And then we're having landing, fuel, parking charges go up over 1.1 billion naira. Expert lament capital flight costs to medical tourism. And we can see we're looking at, studying, but now we are looking at even apart from schooling, but we're having medical tourism. Of course, people go there. And then it's funny that most of the doctors that even treat are Nigerian doctors that are actually over the country. So why don't you make them come back to Nigeria and treat you? It's quite sad when we read stories like this. In as much as we're trying to cut costs of how we spend money outside the shores of Nigeria. But as far as we don't fix the Nigerian economy, we'll keep spending and enriching other countries. So I hope that we look inwardly and do the right thing. And then still on the Guardian newspaper, Afenifere raises the alarm over kidnapping and burning of INEC office in the Southwest. And then we have the U.S. earmarked $50 billion for Nigerians 2023 polls, training of journalists and others. That you can find on page 5. And that's all on the Guardian newspaper.
On the first newspaper, starting with the big story, letter bomb. 2023 presidential election, Soludo writes of Peter Obi, says Labour Party presidential flag bearer can't win, only playing game. He will only make Tinubu's victory easier. This is coming from Anambra governor. Obi indirectly pulling down PDP for Tinubu. He will come distant third. Wants him to moderate desperation exhibited by his social media mob. Obedience declare war against Soludo, descend on him as Obi keeps mute. Still on the first newspaper, Wike invites Buhari Oshomole Obi to inaugurate Rivers project. Tinubu Atiku banter in Abuja amid PDP and APC clash. NIS retrieves 513 voters' cards, national ID from foreigners. Why Nnamdi Kanu refused to show up in court? This is coming from DSS as court suspends trial indefinitely. This is from the reps to Buhari, request 100 billion naira to tackle flooding as Bajabia adjourns plenary over rowdiness. This is Atiku and Wike face off. PDP will surprise Nigerians in 2023. Appeal court disqualifies Akpabio as APC senatorial candidate. Visa ban on Nigerians. AFP suspends Dubai flights. Gunmen kill Imo monarch, 2 palace chiefs and 3 others. Citizens not feeling GDP growth impact. This is coming from the federal government. While we held 43 meetings with monarchs and others, this is coming from ICPC. NBC finds Arise TV over fake news on Tinubu. Court annuls APC's Guba primary in Akwa Ibom, and King Charles III makes first birthday as British monarch. And the last story on First News, JAMB automates admission processes. And that's all the news on First News newspaper.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for doing this with me. Thank you so much, our viewers. And we have a comment on Facebook coming from Ovi Yakubu, and he said, great job. Thank you so much, Ovi, for that beautiful comment. Thank you to all our followers. Thank you to even the viewers and even the crew members for making this program a success. Until we come here again tomorrow, do have a blessed day ahead.